My conversation today on Behind the Act is with Ruslan Ordonalov. He's a songwriter, producer, and artist. And today we're talking about the freedom we get by not working within the confines of boxes like genres and commercial pressures, and how we're both learning how to champion the art we want to make first instead of filtering it through our perception of how the world will accept it. I'm Seth Schaefer. This is Behind the Act with Ruslan Ordonalov. When you're producing for people, how would you define like the character of you as a producer? Like, why do people come to you?
Interesting. I think so much of it, I mean, at least what I perceive, yeah. You'd have to ask the people that come to me what they come for. But like for like what I perceive I bring to the table is like I do really well with people that have a really strong vision. For what artists that have a really strong vision for what they want, and I help them achieve it. So whatever that means, and I think that's probably one of my like main things. At least that's like what I set as my goal at the end of the day. So it's like very overarching like that, not necessarily super specific of like I do this kind of thing.
Do you have a genre that you focus on?
No, it really is like. My producing for other people is my excuse to be able to dabble in every color of music, I think.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
When you write for yourself, what do you do?
That's also like kind of similar because like right now I'm doing a project. I'm calling it Producer Journals, and it's actually like my first like artist project that I'm like taking ownership of. It was like a solo kind of like. This is
awesome,
me.
Dude. Yeah, cool.
And it's literally all over the map. Like I did an EP of all piano based because I did like classical piano when I was like 12 years. Like started like for like 12 years, I studied classical piano. So there's one that's all piano and orchestral kind of based. And then I'm almost done on mixes on a full like EDM kind of like hard like kind of music. And then I'm going to do another, there's a soul one that I'm working on and then a hip hop one. Yeah.
Dude, that's amazing. That's
so
cool.
it'll be producer journals in different genres. Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, cool. That's been a struggle for me, is the idea that you're supposed to stick within a genre. And I'm like, my brain does not know how to do that. I mean, you've heard like I explore everything and I don't want to feel limited by a genre. Granted, I don't want that to be then you're not going to be able to connect with people because you're not specific. So like how do you, I guess, navigate that? Like the niches and are you just like, no, call it BS and just do what you want? I mean, or.
Man, that question has prevented me from releasing music for years. And I just said, out the window with that. I'm just going to put out what I'm inspired by in the moment and don't worry about the algorithms.
Love it.
Which isn't a business way to approach your art, but also is an artistic approach to approach your art, I think, for me at least.
Well, another non-business way to go about it is to not release music, you know?
That's the most on-business way to go about it, that's for sure.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I love it.
That's a great analogy, yeah. So am I allowed to ask you questions?
Sure. Yeah.
I want to know about your story too. Like how did the music bug like start in your life?
I came out playing music. I mean, like literally, the story goes at least that I was playing music before I said my first words, like 7 songs or something before I said my first word. But it's always been something that drives me, specifically piano. I just was always just attached to it. And then I started taking lessons when I was really young, like 4, I think, like actual lessons. They were like, I don't take 4-year-olds, but this kid is weird. Just kidding. You know? And so as I was younger, I started going to a music school in Colorado. And then I shifted to, and that was like very classically based and, like 45 minutes a day of practice on a contract, I think 6 days a week. And then I would spend like 2 or 3 more hours every day just playing what I want to play. So like I was just like constantly nonstop. And then I really loved jazz. I like dropped classical entirely. Went 100% into the jazz thing, and then playing in some like jazz combos and bands around the Grand Junction, Colorado. And then there was a piano bar, and I was playing there while I was in high school. And that was, I forget how many nights a week, but 5 hours or something.
Wow.
Like just nonstop, like play. So
wow. Was that like kind of like a job for you
at
the time? Okay.
Yeah, I was getting paid and making, for being a high schooler, making decent money, and and then I did the thing I was supposed to do, go to college, and I lasted almost a whole semester, and then it was like, oh my gosh, this is not for me, and then I led a band at a church too for about 5 years. I just burnt out, man, on playing live big time. Like, I love writing music for film. Like,
how did this film like space like begin? Like, what was the kernel of that? Like, why does that exist in your life?
So contrary to what it might seem like, I was never passionate about being a filmmaker, like at all. Like, didn't know anything about that. But I co-owned a recording studio with a friend, and the hip hop artist that we were recording needed help with things, and that friend also needed some design stuff. So I started playing with the InDesign and Illustrator, and which moved into Photoshop, which turned into like photography stuff, which then turned into some interest in the video side. But it wasn't until the church, really, now that I think about it, that like I was writing a song for one of the opening films or whatever for the church, and I hated what, I hate to put this on there, but I hated the results of what the person came up with on the thing. And I was like, can you leave your computer open, and I'm going to try to learn this thing. And so I dove in and made it like, shake when the music hit and like whatever. And it started to move me though. It was like, man, this is interesting. So I started hiring people to film. And at that point, there weren't as many nice cameras around. So I had to learn how to color correct, so I didn't know anything about it. And when the 5D Mark II came out a long time ago, that like revolutionized things. And I was like, man, I'm going to learn how to use this camera and think through that lens. And Carrie and I took a 9-month trip when we first got married, and traveled all around the country, and I took a ton of pictures. And anyway,
that's amazing. So while on this trip is kind of like how you maybe learned how to use the camera.
A lot of it. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, but I did a lot of like animation stuff before that. So a lot of After Effects.
Okay.
Like moving stuff around, moving it through 3D space, and so I like had a good concept of 3D. But yeah.
So you spent a lot of time actually like working in the visual, or like crafting like almost like visual things as much as music, which is really fascinating to me.
Yeah. But then like on the music front, like I've sat, I mean, I still do all the time. Like I just sit down and music just flows out of me. I'd love it. And it's like the only way I know how to really express myself.
Yeah.
Like I try to do this words thing and conversation thing, but it like music's how I know how to tell people how I feel.
Yeah. That's incredible. Is anybody else in your family musical, or is music in the family besides you?
Yeah, but not to the same hyper focus level.
Yeah.
So
okay.
My mom played piano. My dad played guitar and piano, like a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
My sister plays piano, but I'm the nerdy one in that regard, I think.
Like dove in at first,
yeah, like unnecessary levels of hyper focus on things, and
just
But again, it's like I literally consider it my first language.
Yeah, I relate to that. Yeah. That's really cool. How do you does your family ever, or do you have experiences with like either of your parents or your siblings or anybody like almost trying to share how they feel or how you feel by being like, this is a song I like, or like, would you listen to this song? Or, like,
That was
or
not part of my family culture at all.
Okay,
No.
yeah. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Interestingly, I have a dislike of country because my dad taught me to not like country. Not like he was like, he didn't teach me to not like country, but I knew he didn't like it. And I think the type of country that was played at his work while they were in the cars, like he would come home and complain about it. So I'm trying to unpack that. I'm trying to go like, how do I like country? Because I love folk and I like a lot of country stuff, especially when I hear it just like as is. So it's like, I'm trying to untrain bad thoughts from the history of childhood, and
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I actually really like. I'm going through a similar process with country music myself. Like where it's like, I think that a part of that for me is also expanding the vocabulary of what what country music means. Because I think at some point I was just like, it was like country radio is what I thought of as country music.
Yeah.
But maybe this sounds embarrassing or something. But like I've been like, especially over the last couple of years, like really into Johnny Cash for like some reason.
Yeah.
And that has like pulled me. It's almost like I found like a natural way to like with music that I actually connect, and it's opening up the doors to like more things. And plus, in the country space, then like I was starting to listen to like Dolly Parton more, and like the older country for some reason is like really hitting the spot, like in a genuine like where I'm like connected to it way.
Cool.
And then like I'm such a Post Malone fan.
Yeah.
And him doing and like diving into that space is like really, for some reason, it's like awoken that
That's cool.
vibe in me. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's like, it's not smart to like to disregard something because it has a label on it. You know? Like listen to the song and go like, is that a good song?
Yes.
And that's what I don't like about my current tendency on the perception of country stuff.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
It just feels unhelpful. And it is entirely unhelpful. And this is, let's say, the more immature version of myself came up with the death by Kenny theory. That like, because when we were visited here before we went through the Country Music Hall of Fame, and it was like Kenny Rogers is like the beginning of where I started hating country, like all the old stuff. I love it, and then and then I was like, well, and then like I love jazz, but then people are like, I like jazz too because I listen to Kenny G.
Oh yeah, right. Yep.
And I'm like, well, no, that's not jazz.
Yeah,
but that's totally unfair. And truly, like those judgments that I'm applying to those things are what create my own fear in releasing my own music. It's like that. It's the same muscle. It's the same muscle of like I'm afraid of my own judgment. I don't know.
Oh man, what a nerve you hit right there, because it's like that also like kind of like comes down to me personally about like it's in line with that super cheesy like overused quote, but it's honestly been a staple in my life when it comes to like releasing music or doing anything really, is that whole like, I think it was the original quote, it's by Roosevelt, but it's like the not the critic who counts, but the one in the arena. Like, I'm doing a terrible job of paraphrasing it.
I don't know the quote.
So the general idea is that this is a horrible way of saying it, but the general idea is that it's not the critic who counts, who's sitting in the audience, but it's the fighter in the arena who is like got bruises and gets knocked down, but then gets up and keeps going.
Yep.
And it's like, that's how the analogy of that is like, that's how I picture music and being a critic of music.
Yeah.
Because like that fear of like my own judgment of other people's art, knowing how harsh I can be if I'm honest with myself. And I don't want to feel that harshness from anybody else when it comes to me putting something, the most precious inner world, like, because I relate to what you're saying about music being the first language. That is very real. Like that is more me than me that you're getting right now.
Yep.
And putting that on display and allowing that to be criticized, loved, hated, or interacted with in any way feels so naked.
Yeah.
And turns on that fear of me of like, oh my God, I've totally bashed on somebody else's music, especially when I was younger. Like, and that whole thing has been a big journey for me of like just like learning how to appreciate things and seeing the beauty in things before like without bringing my preconceived kind of like worldview to it. And because then you're also opening the ability to receive what is rather than hear it through the lens of your experience. If that makes sense.
Right.
That's
Well,
so long-winded.
and it is that judgment that fuels the fear, obviously. Talk to me about how that fear, well, it prevented you from releasing your stuff for a very long time, right?
Yeah.
But earlier we were talking about how it's easy to champion other people's art for pay instead of championing yourself. That, of course, will be pay at some point, or it can be,
Right.
Like, but
Man, that's just tough. Yeah, because I will say it's also been a journey. I think I've gotten better at it because my existence like relies on it in terms of like from my financial life. It's my job, literally. I think I've gotten better at that process but when I like was starting as a producer, it took a really long time. It was the same thing, and I feel like that's also what's giving me courage to finally start releasing music as an artist too, is because like early on, like the first sessions that I would do as a producer and writer in the room, like with a real artist in my brain, like especially like my first session I did with a label artist, like somebody was signed. I was so nervous. I had to leave the room multiple times because my hands were literally, I couldn't keep my hands from shaking because I was like, I hope they don't notice this because I'm so terrified of like, because I'm a wallflower by like, and like very much like an internal and like introvert, and like for me to be in the producer seat and like run the session and like yes, no, kind of like, be that person was it felt like a role that I would never be able to attain. So,
dude,
it's not recording.
No, that's, dude, I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
So frustrated right now. Well, cameras are rolling again.
Yes, I love that. Honestly, can that be part of the podcast?
Well, it has to
Can it be part of the episode?
Just remember to format your cards before you go to record.
I mean, honestly,
filled up.
Also, talk to me about being a one-man show in this season of life, because I know you've like been in a situation where you've had a full crew and like have worked with many collaborators, but in some capacities, at least from my limited interaction with you on the creative side, like you're running 3 cameras here, audio, full studio. You're trying to, you're trying to like be a welcoming host with me coming over and like while keeping all this running. That's a lot. Like, what is that like? What's going on in your brain?
Yeah, there was such an intense amount of burning the candle at both ends and 17 places in the middle before I started to like burn out, like even, with the company. Yeah. So when I was pushing at my hardest, man, I was so tired. I'm still recovering from it. My brain doesn't work well in certain things. Like, I need help, but the amount of stress that it took to have that big of an operation going just wrecked me. So what I've found is Ash is our post-production supervisor. She runs a lot of the communication, all the communication for the post-production with our clients. She's also directing films. She does so much for the company, and so she's still dealing with that. And I still have to hire people to come help me with things. And it's a lot of times it's mess related. Like I am like, okay, I don't know how to get this. Like my brain just, I'm getting confused about where my messes are, So like I need things to be as organized as I was showing you, or as workflow smooth as I was showing you, because that I literally need it in order for me to be able to be creative,
Yeah.
And like this process, or like the vibe of the room matters to me, like, and that helps me move forward. So I think it's a long way to say, of course, like I'm not going to get as much done alone as having, 14 people on staff, but but it's just a balance. I'm allowed to be nicer to myself.
Yeah.
So I know it's a lot to manage, but this stuff, I mean, other than me making the errors like we just experienced, of the cards filling up.
Yeah.
I mean, which is cool.
Which is crazy, because that's like, I'm impressed that you even noticed, to be honest. Like, because like we're filming this, like you're like present in it, and the fact that you're also in the back of your mind making sure.
Yeah, you're like, wait.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, wait, are they all on? Yeah, no, they're all on. That's
anyway,
good.
that's just impressive.
No,
to me, so.
yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, and I think that's another thing too, is like you roll with the punches of what shows up, like, and it's true with film. It's true. I mean, I want to talk to you about your interest in film stuff too, but like, that's something it's with everything. It's like you can either redo it or just accept where you're at with things. And a lot of times with film production schedules, especially the kinds of films that I do, like there is no such thing as redo. Like you have to keep going, and adapt, to the process or whatever. But talk to me about film for you.
Man, it's a very new thing.
I do have a tip for you before you start.
Please.
Make sure you wipe your cards before you start recording.
Okay. I have run into that.
Yeah, exactly.
I have run into that to a point where, like, so, I mean, I'm just playing. I'm just like setting up the camera in the, like in this, like playing around with capturing like parts of a production process, and play, because it's not just about that. This is what I'm learning. I kind of got past the part one of like kind of the basics of lighting, kind of the very, very basics of like the technical things of capturing something in like a decent image. And now I'm like learning more about why to capture the image, and like kind of like what your expertise is of like telling the story of like, okay, cool. If I just set up a camera, like what makes it interesting? Why would anybody want to watch this? Or why would I care to even go back through this footage at the end of the day?
Yep.
And so just kind of like slowly, it's been like a very incremental, almost like hobby approach at the moment, but I love it because it also intersects so much with being an artist these days and like releasing music, because you have to have a visual component of it. To some degree, and I love working with other people, but then also like having the camera, a camera, and like learning more about it has just like very analogous to the idea of having a singer tune their own vocal, like not given that that's like a very common thing nowadays, like most people tune their vocals. When a singer that's never done that, it goes through the process of doing that, the way they sing changes when they do it themselves.
Right.
Because they're like, oh, like, or the way even if they don't change the way they sing their leads, like it changes how they double vocals or whatever, because they're like, oh, I get it. Like, that's a little issue that I always want to, like, always needs to be fixed or whatever, so I'm just going to do it going in. And I think in a similar way, having a camera is teaching me more about how to collaborate with somebody else who's in the video space, and even like teaching me more about the language of how to communicate better, of like what I would like or what I like and don't like. So,
Something I forgot to mention earlier, but I think is relevant to this, is that film is easy for me to go be good at, quote unquote, because I wasn't supposed to be good at it in my soul. Like I didn't
care to be a filmmaker, but I started to like it. I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I welcomed myself in being able to fail quickly, fail often, and just learn. And the music side, I was supposed to be good at, right? Like in my heart, like I'm good at this because I do music. Just because I can play piano, like to whatever level I play piano, like doesn't mean I'm going to be good at recording and knowing how to place a mic and knowing how to mix and knowing how to, so that's been my last couple of years is helping strip away from this identity piece that I have of my music being me and be like, what am I allowed to fail at? And like kind of rediscovering, discovering what is left. Like, what am I still afraid of? Like what's here, but like stripping away like music business stuff. Like, how do you know how to get all your royalties and registration and do all the those things? Well, I'm not supposed to know how to do that, and so it's okay. Go fail at it, like
Right.
So with your engagement into the film side, do you feel a fear like you do around your music, or do you feel?
No, I get it. I feel like I don't know what the best way to put it, but almost like a fool and where that doesn't care. Like,
Awesome.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
I like this, or like I know I'm like I love having the freedom to walk into this kind of discipline and just be like, I don't know anything. Like,
Yep.
here, like, hold my camera and make it work for me. Like,
Yep.
And I love the ignorance of that because I
Yep.
learn so much from having like, the freedom and the egolessness, I guess, even like partially like just like tell me how to do this because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yes. Yeah. That's how I've been with music stuff. Like I'm like, I don't know. Like I know my mixes are sounding bad. Like, so
they aren't, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Well, they're getting better, but but I still am like completely an open book. I'm like, I'm not supposed to be good at this. Like, you know what I mean by that? Like, I don't attach that to my identity.
Yeah.
I always just want to learn and get better.
Yeah.
And I don't need to attach, like, I don't know. So I'm literally like hired people to come over and be like, why does it sound bad? Like, just
Right.
help me. Like, and I need it. And I'm sure I'm going to go through plenty more of that too. But I want to talk about the validity of art and the different varying levels of like technical execution and also the experience of it, especially in a world that we're going into where AI is creating art pretty well and beautifully, and we could say thoughtfully in certain places, and will continue to get better. So how do you champion your experience as a human and others as humans at all varying levels of quality, right? And at all varying, like if a little kid comes in and shares a new song that they wrote, it's not, the best song that's ever been written. It's still valuable because it's them, but if a 50-year-old person comes in and plays that same song, you might judge it, but you're like, but if it's the best that they can do, like, how do you, I don't know.
Yeah.
How do you value art and then maybe champion the rest of the world to do the same thing for everybody? Because when we are open to being a fool about things, like you say, or whatever, we feel free to play.
Yes. Yeah.
And to like create. Like, so why do we shove ourselves further into a box where we feel less free to be as fun and playful? I don't know.
I think it's like maybe like the flip side of ego is confidence in my brain. And it's almost like that line between cocky that people say, oh, that's like the cocky and confident is actually a very thin line. It's almost like the whole idea, at least, oh god, this is like, sorry, this is way too deep.
No,
but
it's not.
Like,
No.
this is the things I ponder on because like, I feel like confidence and ego, unhealthy ego, like are very closely aligned. And I think maybe, this is my theory, but maybe as we develop our craft and become more confident in ways that we should, like, because like, if you know how to, you and I are in a room and here I am fumbling with a camera, which I did on Friday, and you're like, I know what to do. I was so glad that you have the experience and the confidence that comes from your years of experience doing this to be like, I got it.
Yeah.
And I also feel like sometimes when maybe in our insecurities, when we flip to the ego side of that coin, where it's like, I need to do it in order to feel validated in the situation. Like, I need to be the one that handles the camera. I need to be the one that, like, whatever.
Right.
Then that flips it out of that. Like, you're no longer a fool. You're definitely in a position where you're trying to control and manipulate the result of the whatever space you're in.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know how we got here.
No,
but
no. I think that's an interesting idea. And when you were talking about, like, you know, cocky and confident, I feel like the cocky, confident person is actually afraid.
Right.
Like they're weaker than the person that shows up and is confident enough to say, I'm a fool.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Like that type of confidence is what I want to resonate with, is like, I want to be so open about the idea that I don't know and I need and want to learn. Like, that's the confidence I'm looking for, you know.
But that which doesn't that tie to the question of identity at that point, right? It's like you're saying, like, I didn't have my identity wrapped up in the video, so it made it easier. So I feel like in the same way, like, if your identity isn't attached to whatever it is that you're doing, you're able to have fun with it.
Yeah.
And you are able to carry yourself in the confidence that will actually propel you forward in that. In a fun way, rather than like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I hope the world doesn't crash around me.
Totally. I think this is a weird connection to the earlier point, the conversation about genres. But if I think about having to write a song in a genre, I don't feel like I get to play. I don't feel like I get to sit. I mean, granted, it's working within constraints is really fun too. Like, truly, I love that in film and in music or whatever too. But but being able to, like, truly just show up, like you for your, you know, exploring every different genre for your project, you know, like, that's really, really cool. And that to me says you're giving yourself permission to play, you know.
Yes. That's exactly. That's it. Yeah.
I guess, what are you most excited about for your next phases in life? Because you've been producing for, you said, over a decade, right?
Yeah.
Or no, you said since 12, not 12 years. But
yeah, for a long time. I think. I mean, that will forever be a part of, like, my artistic, like, outlet, and I love artists, love creatives, like, just I love being surrounded by artists because I just love that life.
Yeah.
And I love being like, it's such an honor to be able to be brought onto a project and be asked to bring it to fruition. Like, it's just, I love that process, and I love seeing people's kind of also now, I guess, what you were saying about your, like, some of your video work, where it feels like you're putting a mirror up for them to see who they are. Like, that's what I feel like actually what I love doing as a producer. Like, if I can go back to the beginning of this interview when you asked, or this podcast when you asked that question of, like, what my role is, like, I hope that that's my role, is that, like, when we hear the final, or that, like, moment where things click in a song, I hope that the artist looks up and be like, this is it, but, like, even more, like, even better. It's, like, beyond my expectation.
Like, you heard them more than they knew.
Yes.
Like,
that's my goal every time. It's like, because we all, especially as artists, like, I feel like we need an outside perspective to even, like, sometimes help us know what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, and, like, and draw those things out. And I think just, like, being able to take a little bit more ownership of, like, in a creative space, a little bit more ownership, and switch my mentality to, like, being a work for hire kind of person for other people's art, and kind of upholding their vision, and kind of bet on myself more. That seems exciting to me.
Like you've been able to do for other artists.
And just, like, consider myself as an artist, and that's terrifying to say even right now to say it out loud and being recorded.
I love it. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so here's a question about the other artists that you work with, but also for yourself too. Like, what false narratives do you see that you have to overcome as a producer for the artists? That, like, what are some like common themes?
We talked about cocky and confident. Like, I think a lot of people struggle with the confidence to like that. I mean, it's the artist Achilles heel, in my opinion. Like, out of at least the artists that I work with, it's like people that like we are most afraid to do the thing that we are most afraid to do.
Right. Yep.
When it comes to our songs, when it comes to like deciding, do I switch? Like when you're working with an artist who has like a catalog and a fan base, the sheer like expectation for them to like follow the current that they're in creatively, like when it comes to the music that they've historically made or whatever, and to be able to be like, okay, do I think about it from this perspective to satisfy this audience and
Right.
to be able to have a career, or do I take this terrifying leap of faith to where my taste is currently gravitating towards and where I can feel like I can play genuinely and be a kid and not show up to work. Like that is like an element that's a very common thing where it's like just trying to pull people. It's like, it's okay to play. And I'm not trying to like break your career, but I just genuinely think that maybe potentially there's going to be an audience that grows into that taste with you, and maybe they're already there. And anyway, so that's like an example of one I think that I see often, and
People feeling stuck with an identity that they it makes sense. I think John Mayer has set a good example, or at least in my brain, of like him again going and playing and like just like doing is like, I'm gonna completely reinvent. And then his concerts are literally just 3 different or 4 different things.
Exactly.
Like,
That's
let's bring out this band now. You know, like, I love.
I've never
that
thought
so
about
much.
Mayer that way, but that's very true about him. Yeah.
I remember the first time I loved a band's CD, and then they came out with their next one, and I was like, oh, that's not good. It's not more of that other one.
Right.
And it took me a long time to realize like the value as an artist. Like you're literally just witnessing a timestamp of their creative moment. Not, like that's what that album is.
Yeah.
And that's what I have to like, and I'm trying to apply that to myself also, is like these songs that I have like are timestamps of a moment that I have. And I have to remember that all I'm doing is documenting a moment that I had creatively and a way that I felt. And I'm not attaching to a statement of my identity. I'm just this is a journal entry. And that's what that song is. Like, so I can't judge it. It just is what it is. Like, it's a journal entry. And hopefully I'll, honor it as much as I can and then move the hell on and get to another song,
Yeah.
Like, so.
With that in mind, like, do you seem like maybe, or I feel like it's common for a lot of us. I'm gonna start this question over. With that in mind, do you feel like there are pieces of music that you have worked on for a really long time and keep coming back to, or do you, like, when I'm talking about a long time, I'm talking about like maybe like 3 years plus?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
No, I have way too many songs and too many songs I think that are good. Like I'm at least plenty good for me to release. So again, like I'm in the studio, like now it's mostly functioning, I think, except for when I don't know what button to click or something. But I needed for myself a fully capable studio, so that I didn't have the excuse of like, well, I don't know how to finish it, or I had to lean on a bunch of other people for me to play. Right. And so like I've just been like kind of stumbling forward on like the process of like where do I where am I uncomfortable next, in that process. And like I said before, like last year, my focus was music business stuff because I'm an entrepreneur, by as much of an entrepreneur as I am like a musician and a filmmaker and whatever. Like I enjoy business and I like thinking about it, but it's like I want to give every one of these songs the best chance, or at least feel like I didn't accidentally completely ignore something that could have helped it be something. Or if like I release the song and somebody calls me and they're like, we want to put it on, a movie or something, and I'm like, I don't know how to do anything about this. Like, I don't know. I'm there's so many pieces that I was ignorant about. So I've been really committing my time to like build that foundation, So, but I do have a lot of songs, like, and some of them were probably timestamps that I would have honored and done a good job with then, and now I won't, because they've just sat for too long or something. But
so that's what I'm curious about is like, what do you feel like about them now as you're coming into a season of like, or like you're in a season of finishing music, and like actually pushing things across the finish lines? What ideas are you most excited about? The older ones, or are there or is there majority of those ideas and like those songs coming from a more recent place?
Oh, I think I'm happy both ways. I think. I don't feel like I'm ever out of ideas musically, at least at the moment. It feels like I pick up any of these instruments and like something starts flowing out and I love it. And I'm like, I feel it, it's like there's something that just attaches to it. So I don't feel like I'll run out of ideas, but I do document a lot of, voice memo, like phone memo, recordings of all of these ideas. I mean, I have so many of them, and I want to bring them to fruition too. And I could be blind about it, and but I think that they're legit good ideas, like that they have a good feel and a good vibe, and So, I mean, like the dream would be like somehow have the ability to like just knock one out a day or something, and just just like let's just play and like make stuff, and I don't know. I think at one point I counted, I forget if it was 120 or 180 like actual like chord changes, melodies like of a verse and a chorus that I had like put together that are like I still like they get stuck in my head when I hear them, like from the last few years or whatever.
That's such a deep well.
Ridiculous. Like and that, hopefully they're as good as I think. I mean, who cares? I just want to play,
Yeah. What when you're coming up to this like imaginary line of like I need to put the next, like I need to release a song or I need to release a body of work. What's the percent? Like is there like a mental list in your head of songs right now, like that you have that you're like, okay, these are the songs I would do right now and put them up, or like, or they're a priority. Like if you're next time you have an open day that you need to open your session and like
the first two I'm gonna do are gonna be that piano one, No Words, and Monster.
Okay,
those are the first two.
Sick.
For sure.
Are those new ideas or old?
I'd have to look.
Okay.
The No Words one was that so that piano part that like literally as is the only thing I played that day. And it was the day that the school shooting happened here. And the school that shooting happened at was closer to our house than where our boys go to school.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a weird emotion. I was like, I don't even know how to process this, but I should probably just play something. And that's what I played. Wow. And it was, I mean, it's an improv, and I just built a production around it, and so that was, I guess that was the day on that one. And then the Monster one, those are pretty recent, I guess. But I have a couple of others. I'll play those for you too.
I'm so curious.
That are like that are pretty close. I just need to fix some stuff on the mix stuff because I was learning again, like, oh, cool, the semi mixer has this like silk thing. Let me just put it all the way up.
Right.
And I'm like, oh,
right.
now I hear what that did, and I didn't hear it at the time. It's like stuff like that. But but again, that's part of the play process. Is like allow myself to fail into those, like have a mix that comes out super airy and bright, and like I don't know. And I have hearing issues too, especially in the high end, and I've got really loud tinnitus. So for me, like the reason that every one of my cables is a Megami Gold cable is because I know that that's not going to cause, that won't be one of my issues. Having a bad cable that's picking up something I can't hear, and I don't notice till the very end. People are like, why did you leave that in? And I'm like, I didn't even know it was there, So, and a lot of the reason it's like I'm buying pretty nice, mics and equipment and all of the things is because I want to make sure that that I'm giving everything the best chance all the way through the signal on things I wouldn't be able to hear. So it's like, and even though I validate in 1,000,000% that, for example, I mean, like, the 87 is a great mic, but there could be like a $200 mic that's going to sound great, but I might not be able to hear the difference. So I know at least conceptually that starting with a solid system at least sets me up for the most plausible success on the things that I can't, like, I don't have the discerning ears or maybe even the physical ability to hear it, So anyway.
How no, we don't have to talk about this. We don't want to, but like fine. How much of like is that like a big, I can imagine that being a pretty big like source of like even fear for like releasing music or insecurity and like
definitely
and belief in yourself and when it comes to your music, right?
Yeah, definitely. Especially on the mixing.
Yeah,
because again, I mean, it's literally what it sounds like is what the mix is, and I can't hear like at least an octave and a half that most people are going to be able to, or something, right? Like, probably. So that's why I'm trying to figure out like what's my process, like how do I make sure that I'm getting pretty close to that, I'll need to just have people that I can lean on to be like, can you just double check this for me, like, and that's fine.
Well, I could be one of those people if you want.
Amazing. Yes, please. Because I just need, I'm aware that I know, I can think about what that sound is supposed to sound like. Yeah. I know where it's placed. I know where it disappears in my hearing. Just like everybody has a limit and then it goes away. You're like, I can imagine kind of where it gets higher. So I don't know. Like it has definitely been a point of stress, but I've also been making like really, I say like super amateur mistakes, like I was saying, like making just like cranking everything to go like as loud as it can go and over distorting things because I just didn't know any better. Like it needs to be louder. Let me make it louder in the mix, not in like, oh, there's a volume knob that makes it louder.
Right.
I mean, literally. So and like lyrics, I didn't know. I don't hear lyrics. I don't really like when I'm listening to a song. I don't. I can't recite basically any lyrics, even my own. you know. And but I like words and I like putting them together. So I asked somebody to help me. Learn how to try to write lyrics and at least learn some of the rules and like kind of test it and like give, bad lyrics back and get feedback and like. It was a fun process for me, and it kind of opened me up to be like, oh, in the corner of the music world that I want to play in, I'm not as worried about these being like as perfect, but I like to know the rules. That's just the kind of the way I run on everything. It's like I like to know the rules, and then I can break them. But I just so
kind of know the parameters that we're playing with
that you're supposed to, exactly. But like as a jazz pianist, we know to break all those rules.
Right.
I'm just kidding, but but kind of. It's like if you know what you're not supposed to do or why that's a rule at least, then you can start to play with it. And like there isn't really anything wrong. It's all just sound, like or whatever. So I don't know. Right. Anyway, but I definitely judge myself against my perception of everybody else's art, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and that's been a hard one though for me, is to like separate from, like, just going a simple example. Like, I like pop sounds. I think it sounds cool. When I sit down to do it, I don't feel like how do I put this? I think I kept wanting to do that because then I felt like I would like I would, what's the word I'm looking for? I feel like I was trying to do a pop sound in order to like prove that I could do that too.
Yeah.
Instead of like honoring what my voice is. Cause like I have a different approach to music, you know?
Yeah.
So, that's the way my brain thinks. And I'm like, I've been learning to more accurately just honor the way that I am, like the way my brain works, you know?
That's
an artist.
That's amazing. And I'm assuming these songs that you played for me are in line with that, because
Yes.
like, I love it. Like, I love that, like the creativity in them, and I haven't heard anything like it. And
It's amazing. Thank you.
very cool. Like, I was very inspired by it. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'm really excited to hear your stuff.
Thanks, man.
Like,
I'll play you something. if you
Yeah,
want.
let's do it. Yeah. I'm proud of you for stepping in and doing that though. Like, it's a big
Thanks.
deal. Like,
Thanks.
especially in a space that you've been working in and have had so many, I guess, successes and successful people around you, and you've had a muscle that you haven't been working at releasing your own music, you know.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying knowing like that some of my friends, like people that like do it professionally as artists, will hear it. Or like at least snippets of it. I'm not ignorant enough to think that they'll listen to it, but they might hear me post about it on Instagram or something.
Yes, exactly.
And that's terrifying.
Right. But to decide after not having done it for so long to do it, you know,
Yeah.
like, that's a big deal, dude. So good job.
Well,
That's
thanks,
cool.
man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Let's post music.
Yes. Go music.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing with other people you think might gain value from it. My name is Seth Schaefer. This is Behind the Act.